history major. What are you going to do with that? Well, that's how the interview began for my first job out of college. Spoiler alert, I did get the job, so you don't need to worry. But I was really caught off guard at that moment, and as a major people pleaser, still working on that one, it was paralyzing. Now, I know what you're thinking. How does a Holy Cross history major succeed in fashion, let alone get in? How does one go from studying the causes of the French Revolution or reading Germinal to identify with the plight of the proletariat, to ordering fabric and deciding which styles go in a collection? So originally, I had planned to work a couple of years before going to graduate school, maybe either law school or getting a master's in international affairs. So in 1986, I was busy applying to jobs, and not on the internet where you can apply to, multiple applications in a matter of minutes, but by answering ads and snail mailing your typeset resume with your typed written cover letter to different jobs. As a newly minted college grad, I needed a job, and I needed to make enough money to be able to consider graduate school. I hadn't even given a thought to the idea of a career in fashion. It just wasn't on my radar, and it seemed kind of frivolous and fluffy. But with the recruiter's urging, I ditched that navy blue suit I'd been using for finance interviews, and I raided my mother's closet for a bright cobalt blue silk shirt and this jacket with these really big shoulder pads. And I finished the look with equally oversized pearl and gold jewelry. I mean, it was the 80s. And when I walked in that office in the middle of the very gritty garment center, again, it was the 80s, I was viscerally struck by the environment. It was filled with so much energy and color, which is really ironic since I rarely ever wear any color, and when we were told we shouldn't wear all black today, well, this is the best I could do. But I was hooked. I was drawn into the creative energy that was infectious. So when that interviewer with the spiky bleached out hair looked at my resume and then at me incredulously, wanting to know what I could do after studying history of all things, I panicked and thought, oh my God, well, what can I actually do? Upon recovering, I thought, well, I can think critically, I can speak persuasively, and I can write effectively. And those were the skills that landed me in a career in a field that I did not study. And thus, my glamorous career in the fashion industry began in the copy room, where I spent hours making copies, all sorts of copies, on all sorts of colored paper, because this was the fashion industry, so even our copies had to be coordinated with the new season. But Holy Cross had prepared me. Maybe not for all the new technology I encountered, the copier, the mainframe computer, the telex machine, or the phone, where on my first day, I kept hanging up on my boss's boyfriend who was calling from his car phone. But in other ways, all those nights where I'd stay up writing my history papers, well, that was fantastic training for the days and nights that lead up to a fashion show where literally everybody works around the clock. Or for the numerous times where we would day trip to Paris, and we would not so glamorously change in the airport, work all day, then fly back to New York before our families realized we had been gone for 36 hours. What I didn't realize when I started working was that not only would I skip grad school, which I am not advocating, but I would love this business of fashion, which is, a global industry, about 1.7 billion, employing almost 13% of the global working population. But that my Jesuit liberal arts education and being a history major would be the foundation for my success. I'm able to lead a diverse, creative, and global workforce with people who do not always share the same ideas or agenda. In fact, they rarely ever do. What motivates the designer, for instance, is not the same as the financial controller, or what's important to the regional manager in Japan is different from their counterpart in Paris. Employees come from different places with different sets of values and experiences. And as a leader, not only must you appreciate these differences, but you must understand how to weave them together in order to create a harmony that allows these differences to become a power instead of a weakness. Because of my education, I'm able to communicate across cultures and languages to partner with suppliers and retailers all over the world with a cultural literacy that comes from being informed, aware, and adaptable. But what does this have to do with studying history? When encouraging business leaders to study history, the filmmaker Ken Burns has said, you can't possibly know where you are or where you're going if you don't know where you've been. So to understand the present, you need to understand the past. So in preparing to talk to you, I combed through various college and university websites about why you'd want to choose to be a history major, and consistent across the myriad of institutions. And I did a broad survey of all different types of colleges, universities, across regions and different levels. As many times as you see the word past, you see the word present. Sure, when you study history, we look back, and we look way back. We dissect events and movements and discoveries from the past. But we don't do it to chronicle them, although knowing what came first and after is important, but to contextualize them. Without context, it's difficult, if not impossible, to comprehend the significance and the value of events and actions in any era. When we form deep discernment of the cultural, social, and political norms of an era, it broadens our perspective. It takes us out of our bubble. We're opened up to additional ways of thinking. Our cultural literacy increases. History majors, like time travelers, advance through time and space to experience different cultures and civilizations. And through these encounters, we're pushed to transcend the simple notions of good versus bad, or good people versus bad people, or good ideas versus bad ideas. We develop a deeper, more nuanced and comprehensive understanding of the why, the motivations, the reasons, the potential causation. And from there, we can begin to imagine and develop solutions for real-world problems. It's through this depth of understanding that we develop empathy. And while I think we all understand the importance of empathy in our lives, for a successful business leader who wants to create an effective or healthy workforce, it's critical. Empathy helps us become more self-aware, and that awareness allows us to be more open to other points of view. It means that I can support my staff through the lens of cura personalis, that great Jesuit value that promotes human dignity through caring for the development of the whole person. And this is not just some feel-good strategy, but one that also supports the bottom line. When there's greater trust and a sense of self-worth, employees feel a greater connection to their work. Finding meaning helps people and organizations flourish. And when organizations flourish, they do better. Okay, so let's get back to studying history. When we really investigate events from the past, we begin to see patterns. While each historical event is unique, occurring at a unique time and place with unique people, there are patterns and commonalities that become evident. We're all human, and while we're all unique, certainly in the eyes of God, we also share many common traits. We behave in patterns that have continued throughout time. For instance, the 7 deadly sins, I think they enumerated them back in like the 4th century, but we still lament about greed and envy and pride. I mean, are these really any different today? When we study patterns, we begin to see regularities that allow us to predict. And then when we overlay data and history, we can begin to theorize what may come next, essentially extending that pattern. Now, I think we all remember doing these pattern activities when we were kids. You'd place that symbol or the number that would come next. Well, this is what happens to historians. Now, I'm taking a little liberty here and calling myself that. Thank you, Professor McBride. We get really good at seeing patterns, and then we can apply judgment that comes from understanding the context. So we can hypothesize about what might come next, and then we can use that supposition in all sorts of ways. For me in my work, this means being able to understand the psyche of a consumer, and then applying data and context to predict what she or he will want to buy. I understand how to position brands in the context of society or current cultural trends. Now, fashion reflects culture, mirroring the sentiments of the ages. And while we design for the future, we constantly look at the past. A designer sees forward in ways that we can't even imagine. but they also embrace what was done in the past. So then I have to interpret our consumers' motivations and translate what the designer dreams into what a woman or man would want. All right, so let's say last year we sold 1,000 purple sweaters. Does it mean that this year we'll sell another 1,000 purple sweaters? Okay, well, maybe at Holy Cross, but no, nowhere else. It does mean, however, that last year, 1,000 of our customers wanted a purple sweater. We then look at what might have motivated her to buy that. And this can include all types of social and environmental forces. Again, we need the context. Then we apply data from the past and present and overlay hypotheses around the consumer's motivation in order to predict for the future. So we need to analyze data and learn from the data, but it's not always so straightforward. It's not just about creating a conditional statement like those typically used in, say, coding. Okay, for another example, what if you'd sold 1,000 skinny jeans, though I would argue that wasn't last year? And next year you think, okay, I should produce equal or more, say my budget's going up, or I think I'm gonna get more customers. And then no one wants skinny jeans. Now, I'd argue that trend did not drop off suddenly if you were paying attention to society and culture, and if you had those skills that a liberal arts educated student is gifted in, you would not have been caught with a bunch of skinny jeans that you can't sell. And we all know what happens then. It's not just a loss of revenue, but a tremendous unnecessary waste of our environment. So let me be clear, there's no crystal ball or some simple algorithm that makes this happen, but a process of weaving the past with the sentiments of current culture. We look to understand the regularities of making conscious choices about what will come next. We hypothesize based on data as well as psychographics about our consumers. And this requires thinking critically, being able to research, to discern, and to evaluate the quality as well as the quantity of information. Now, these skills are certainly useful in business, but also in life. I mean, sorting through the morass of online information and disinformation. Can you imagine if more of our fellow citizens could actually distinguish this? So studying history does not train you transactionally for today's job world. Did it do that for me in the 80s? In an age where you can Google a fact in seconds, memorizing a date or fact is even less important than ever. But being skilled how to think versus what to think is a far more powerful tool. Now, I know this is challenging to grasp when college students everywhere are being pressed into learning skills to do specific tasks, to get that prized internship that will hopefully lead you to a full-time job upon graduation. We're at a time when kids as young as middle schoolers are being herded into choosing paths so they can to specialize early, to get ahead, or when you're being told to develop your personal brand instead of spending time thinking and learning. To all you students, and I can see some here, do not let this happen. Don't let yourselves be reduced by these practices. Don't fall for this. Don't settle for learning a trade that'll be obsolete in 10 or 20 years. Sure, you need to present yourself as best as possible, and you have to have skills that are going to make you competent and competitive to the job market you enter. But you can learn to spreadsheet or create financial models, or you can learn different software skills or business jargon and lingo. That is the easy part. I'm not saying you shouldn't learn them, you should, but don't make it the center of your time in education. Studying liberal arts may not seem like it'll help you in your job prospects, but it will help you adapt as the landscape changes. And it will absolutely help you succeed and continue to succeed as the world changes around you. It will foster your imagination, and it will develop your ability to creatively solve problems. And it will equip you with resourcefulness and adaptability. Now, if there's any bio majors in the crowd, they will attest that adaptable creatures avoid extinction. You will be armed with tools that can continually evolve. And with these tools, you can take on challenges and solve problems you don't even know exist yet. So I say to you, what can you do with a history major? Pretty much whatever the future throws at us. Thank you.